A reading from the book of Revelation. I, John, saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the earth became illumined by his splendor. He cried out in a mighty voice, Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a haunt for demons. She is a cage for every unclean spirit, a cage for every unclean bird, a cage for every unclean and disgusting beast. A mighty angel picked up a stone and like a huge millstone and threw it into the sea and said, With such force will Babylon the great city be thrown down, and will never be found again. No melodies of harpists and musicians, flutists and trumpeters will ever be heard in you again. No craftsman in any trade will ever be found in you again. No sound of the millstone will ever be heard in you again. No light from a lamp will ever be seen in you again. No voices of bride and groom will ever be heard in you again. Because your merchants were the great ones of the world, all nations were led astray by your magic potion. After this, I heard what sounded like the voice of a great multitude in heaven saying, Alleluia! Salvation, glory, and might belong to our God, for true and just are his judgments. He has condemned the great harlot, who corrupted the earth with her harlotry. He has avenged on her the blood of his servants. They said a second time, Alleluia! Smoke will rise from her forever and ever. Then the angel said to me, Write this. Blessed are those who have been called to the wedding feast of the Lamb. Gospel according to Luke. Jesus said to his disciples, When you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, know that its desolation is at hand. Then those in Judea must flee to the mountains. Let those within the city escape from it, and let those in the countryside not enter the city. For these are the days of the time of punishment, when the scriptures will be fulfilled. Woe to pregnant women and nursing mothers in those days, for a terrible calamity will come upon the earth, and a wrathful judgment upon this people. They will fall by the edge of the sword, and be taken as captives to all the Gentiles, and Jerusalem will be trampled underfoot by the Gentiles, until the time of the Gentiles are fulfilled. There will be signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars, and on earth nations will be in dismay. Perplexed by the roaring of the sea and the waves, people will die of fright in anticipation of what is coming upon the world. For the powers of the heavens will be shaken, and then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. But when these signs begin to happen, stand erect and raise your heads, because your redemption is at hand. You know, when I read these readings today, they seem very dark and dour. But it's these last lines here in the gospel. But when these signs begin to happen, stand erect and raise your heads, because your redemption is at hand. That gives me hope. You know, when I read these readings today, I'm reminded of times in my life when I personally was going through great peril. You know, we live in this time of coronavirus, and everything seems to be political. People get mad at each other for the slightest things. I know yesterday I had a kind of an off day yesterday, and I decided after I got off work to go and buy my wife some flowers. And as I was driving home, I stopped at a stoplight, and there was this person who was in such a hurry. They were trying to create a lane beside me because they were just in such a hurry to get around me. We seem to be in, the holidays come, and there seems to be an increasing tension, when there's supposed to be increasing love and acceptance. We have this also increasing tension because everybody has so much to do in such little time to prepare for holiday meals and holiday, appointments and whatnot. I find it interesting that, we have these personal moments of turmoil. But the great thing is there is something greater than what is going on in our lives at any given point. Whether even if it's at the end of times, Jesus was speaking of the end of the destruction of Jerusalem in the gospel, and even at the end of that, he's saying, don't worry, stand erect, raise your heads. I remember when I had my kind of come to Jesus moment after walking away from the faith for a very long time. And I remember sitting on my couch completely engulfed in tears. Yet I rose my head and I prayed to God because I knew what the answer was. I was lucky. Not so many people know what the answer is. But I knew what the answer was. I knew I'd walked away from my faith. I knew that I had put my hope and faith in empty pleasures that would die and fall away so fleeting, and that true happiness only comes through Jesus Christ and through love and loving Him and learning how to love others through God. How my life has changed. And it doesn't mean that I don't have turmoil. I still have plenty of days of unrest and stress and test. But at the end of those days, I can still stand erect and raise my head to my Lord, my God, and look for hope and look for grace and look for just judgment. And He gives those things to me. He calls me out when I'm wrong, and He shows me the way back. And when I am on the right path and I am being persecuted, maybe, I can stand erect and I can raise my head. And He walks with me through the course of time, and those seasons pass. And I will go through this life, and I will have seasons of peace, and I will have seasons of turmoil. And at the end of the day, I know that if I stick with God, and I am faithful to His way and to His word, and I surrender my life completely, and find the happiness and peace in that, then I will eventually end up home in heaven where I belong. In the meantime, it is my duty to love my wife and to support her and to help her in her journey as she does in mine. It is my job to work with her to help our children learn to love and grow and learn to love others and respect others and to help others raise themselves up and to also follow the ways of God and go home to heaven. And maybe, just maybe, they will continue along if they choose that path as well and spread God's love. These readings are so dour, but when I think about what can happen in the kind of compounding interest of God's love as it comes into my life and I allow it to come in and I accept it and I grow with it, it puts a big smile on my face. You can't see it right now, but I feel such a great joy. And even though these readings seem so dour, on this day of Thanksgiving here in America, I realize that I have much to be thankful for. Even though we're going through a time when we're told that we shouldn't gather with extended family, in a time when we're used to joining with extended family, and our lives seem augmented and restrained, and we're told much of what we can't do and shouldn't do for the greater society. And while that may bring strife because there's disagreements around all of this, I can still stand erect and raise my head to the heavens and see how beautiful and wonderful it is to have the love of God in my life. I don't know. That's all I got to say about that.